Hey there, hope you're doing well today. Welcome to another episode of the Pottag Preparatory Melodies to Solo Work. This is number 11. And it's in a very different style and it has some different challenges. So I'm just going to play through it. It's very short. And then we're going to do some work. Okay. This is entitled Con Fuoco. Fuoco, fire, fiery. Now, sometimes these titles might make sense to you and other times they might not make a whole lot of sense. I'm just trying to work out the music. What does this music say? I'm still not sure. I'm still working on it. But I'll give you a rendition based on what I figured out so far and we'll take it from there. Well, that's kind of forceful. It's marked Forte, drops way down to piano, as you can see if you have the music, and comes back up to double Forte. But that's not the main ingredient that I'm sensing here. It seems to me, it's got Marcato marked at the beginning. It seems to me that it has to do with the way the notes are pronounced. So what does Marcato mean? People have different ideas, but the literal, the literal translation is clearly marked. And that can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that the notes are short, necessarily, although the length of the note can help with Marcato. And we'll talk about that a little bit. As a matter of fact, why don't we start, I'll just go ahead and show you different ideas. So one way of doing Marcato is to put more front on the note. So the very beginning of the note has some snap to it. So you can hear that has a very strong front to it. If, however, you're connecting those notes, you could be doing whatever you can to define the snap at the front of the note, and it'll get kind of disguised. But what I'm doing there is I'm actually putting in a tiny bit of separation. In other words, I'm leaving a little gap between the end of each note and the beginning of the next note. So instead of going da, 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 and just pounding through with the tongue, I'm going da, 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 da. That little bit of relief makes all the difference in Marcato. So it's an extremely useful, necessary skill, especially for playing in the orchestra, where we have to have very, very clearly defined articulation. You almost can't exaggerate it too much because, remember, in the orchestra, generally your sound is going out into a large concert hall. And you don't get the effect right here. I'm right on the microphone. You can hear that snap, crackle, pop, I hope, from what's happening here. But that doesn't come across as well out there. So what ends up being a problem for a lot of people is just physically trying too hard to play Marcato. So I want to give you some ideas here. One is that space before the note, a little bit of relief. I'm going to do it slowly so you can hear it. So I can play different lengths and I get different musical effects. But when I leave a little bit of space, whether it's a taper into it or the note stays intense all the way through and then there's just a little bit of relief before, experiment with this. That's the best thing you can do, is just experiment. I used to play with Chris Gecker in the Kansas City Philharmonic when it was still the Philharmonic, which was a long time ago. Hi, Chris. And he told me that when he was studying with Ray Mace at Juilliard, that he was listening to him practice one time, and he just thought to himself, wow, just listen to that Marcato. Because what Ray was doing is he was cultivating the ingredient Marcato so that he could use it in the music that he was playing. And that's exactly what we're doing in this book. See if you can find those ingredients. And it's fun. It's fun because it's a little search, a little exploration, a little experimentation. You're getting to use your ear. You're tasting all these different things. I hope you can tell that from what I'm doing here. And so that's what this is all about. Now, for those of you who are wondering, the next marking in the piece, in what the third or fourth bar in, says simile, which means keep doing the Marcato. Same as you were doing before. And that, in a way, that makes it difficult because you see there is a musical line. So I'm trying to flow all the way through. Make sure that you keep flowing when you're tonguing. A lot of people don't. They go instead of let the air flow. You don't force it. Just let it flow in exactly the same way it would be flowing if you were sustaining the tone. Okay, so what are some of the other things you're going to run into? Okay, breathing. Now, this is a little odd because you play 2 bars and then there's a breath mark. And you play another bar and there or so, bar and a half, there's another breath mark and another breath mark. What's that all about? Well, they can be phrase markings or they can be breath marks or both. So let's start with thinking of it as a phrase marking. In other words, I'm not going to play directly from the long note into the quarter notes, from the half note into the quarter notes over and over again without any relief in the sound. I'm going to let it lift a little bit. And that also allows me to take a breath. But the breathing thing is a physical thing that we have to work out. And the phrasing thing is a musical thing that we have to work out. So if I just play it, you see when I do that, it feels a little weird musically. And this is one of the things that I find quite challenging about this particular tune, may we say, is that how do I get it to sound good musically? See, what I want to do is when I release that long note to take the breath, or to phrase, or both, when I release that long note, the sound keeps going. Now, our friends in the brass world who play the tuba, they know about this because it's an extremely useful reality of playing the tuba. Tuba is a very large instrument. When you set the air in that instrument to vibration, it keeps vibrating for a long time. The trumpet is a small instrument, so when the trumpet stops vibrating, it stops vibrating a lot quicker. And that makes it seem like there's this big gap in the music. So overcome that with the way you're thinking about it. In other words, I'm going, da, da. It's like it keeps going. So if it helps, pretend that you're playing a larger instrument. Any of you who have experience with, tuba or trombone, but especially tuba, just experiment. Stop the air, ba, and then when the air stops, you'll see the sound keeps going. And it keeps vibrating in the instrument, and the sound keeps going out into the room. So in a lot of ways, a tuba player, even though they have to exchange a great deal more air than a trumpet player does, can breathe underneath the sound. And that's the way we want to think about it. I'm going to do it once more, so I hope you can get this idea. There is a lot of skill involved with this, but once you get the idea, I think you'll be able to figure it out. that works? I'm concentrating not on pulling the air back, I'm concentrating not on taking the breath. I'm ready and poised for the air to come in incredibly quickly. But my mind is focused on the sound going out as I do that. So I'm not putting on the brakes, taking a breath, and then reapplying the gas. No, it's a smooth connection between the two. This is one of the most important things to get good at when you play a brass instrument. If you're not good at this, your playing is definitely going to suffer. And I've seen even top-level players that have trouble with this, and other top-level players that are incredibly skilled at it. Incredible high level of agility, quickness, and speed and smoothness in the exchange of the air. And that gives you a lot of options when you're playing. It just really helps you to develop much more confidence and control with what you're doing in your playing. Now we also have some other things going on here. One is dynamics, which is a theme for the Pottag tunes that we're doing here. So when you have to change from one dynamic to a level to another, I like to do kind of what I was doing a minute ago. I'm just sustaining the note so I can kind of get ready, get my mind, oh yeah, I'm going, the sound is going out, and then have the breath come back in again. It's the same thing with the dynamic change. So there you have a breath and a big dynamic change. Practice it just like I just did. So sustain until you're ready. See, the key to good playing, both mentally, musically, physically, is be ready for the next thing that's going to happen. Don't be ahead of yourself. Don't be looking back. Be in the moment, but be ready for what's coming next. When you do that, your playing becomes much, much easier. It makes more sense because everything, you're staying connected. You're kind of riding the wave all the way through. And this means being physically poised. That's just what we were working on there. Now you can see one thing that makes this hard to, for me anyway, makes it hard to make it work is you're just playing scales pretty much. And again, if you can play those scales musically, in other words, with a sense of direction, line, flow, shape, it makes them, then the music starts to come out through. Now at the end we have double forte. And when most trumpet players see double forte, it's kind of the opposite of what we do when we see piano. When we see piano, we go like, you know, it's like pull back, hold back, control, control. You know, don't play too loud. So we're stifling ourselves. When we say forte, we go, we just try and blow that air through harder, and actually that tends to upset the balance. And the more you're trying to drive the air, trying to push too much air through a very small, delicate opening, right? You're trying to force more volume of air through there. And don't get me wrong, more volume of air has to go through when you're playing louder. But when you're pushing it harder, then everything has to tighten up in order to control that. And then you lose some of the marcato, and you lose some of the quality of the sound. So I still have this tendency. It's a very hard habit to break because, you know, when you do it for so many years, it's like it's hardwired into the body. So a good part of your practice is, I would suggest doing something like what a vocalist does. You rarely hear, with trained classical singers, you rarely hear someone forcing the air through their vocal cords. What they do, and I'm sorry, I'm not in good voice today, I can't really demonstrate this, but what they do is they have tremendously resonant tone, very soft, and then as they crescendo, they're allowing more air to flow, and the vocal cords stay balanced in the air, so that the quality of the vibration stays the same all the way through. And so the feeling is, the sense is that the sound is just growing. It's just growing, growing more and more. It's like the sun coming out from behind a cloud. It's just, it's gaining in intensity, but there's no more effort involved. And of course, there is some more effort involved, but you want it to feel very, very comfortable. And so everything is in a very easy range. And what we're used to is trying so hard. And this is especially challenging for when you have to play in the section of the orchestra, and especially, you know, second trumpet parts in the classical orchestra, where some of the Beethoven symphonies you're required to play at pretty high volume levels with just two trumpets. And the second trumpet is really the bulk of the volume in the section, because it's easier to get that projection from the top voice than when you're in the low register. This is what we're talking about today. That's exactly the problem for the second trumpet player. And for me, I think that's one of the most difficult jobs in the orchestra, physically and musically. And so even though that's not what everybody looks at as the prize, without the second trumpet player, the first trumpet player is going to have trouble. Can't really do it without him. We need that support of the lower register. So I'm just going to play the end, and I'll let you go practice some of this stuff. So let's see. Yeah, just where it goes to double forte. So. So my tendency is I'm trying to force the air through. Instead, I hope I wasn't clipping there on the microphone. You're letting it get louder. It's difficult to sometimes to maintain control when it gets louder, but just make sure you keep in focus and don't spread the sound out. Okay, hope that gives you some fun stuff to work on, and I hope to see you back here for another installment of the Pottag Melodies. See you later on. Have a good day. Bye-bye.